you run a big business, you run several businesses now. A lot of people that listen to this podcast, they're not investors sitting at home. That's about 50%. The other 50% are people that work in this industry. All ranges from CEOs of companies all the way to, junior geologists, engineers, and guys working on the ground. And a lot of them are going to be listening to this and thinking, shit, that's pretty cool what Jeff's done. How do I do that? How do I make a name for myself in this space? And I'd like to talk, ask a few questions for the younger people or the people starting out that kind of gives them, I guess, some guidance on how to really succeed here. And, I think of everyone that I've seen in mining has two things in common. They're really good at exposing themselves to serendipity. They're really good at exposing themselves to luck. Because luck, as you know, plays such a big part in this business, especially if you're a company, you're trying to make a discovery, you got to get lucky. The other thing is they bounce back from setbacks well. Pretty much everyone that's extremely rich in mining has had one major blow up in their career, things that have gone terribly wrong. So let's start by the luck question. How do you think someone starting out in the space, call it a 25-year-old, he or she exposes themselves to getting lucky, to get that big job, to make that big win, to start a company? What did you do?
Well, a good point, and you nailed it. This is like a phenomenal educational tool. I grew up here in West Vancouver. I was a lucky kid that grew up, and my father was a fireman, blue-collar worker, and union man, and we just happened to be born in West Van, and the market took off. When I graduated school, I couldn't afford a house in West Van either. At that time, it was $1 million house that my father owned, and he couldn't afford it, and he had to move. So, people talk about housing today. What do we do? Well, you can't afford it, move. So you have to invest in yourself. You have to realize I've got to pick up and move because nobody's going to pay me to stay here. This lifestyle that I love, but I got the drug that I want to be a part of this kind of level of society. I see it, I like it, I want to do something about it.
You'd seen the wealth, you mean?
You see the wealth, that drug of success. You get that first insight that, hey, my life doesn't have to be miserable.
I think that's so important, seeing successful people early on. And if you don't, and I mean, I think of my own life changing when I moved from Kingston, Ontario to Toronto even, and then Toronto to Vancouver. And you just see, well, holy shit, like I didn't even know people made this sort of money.
Right.
So, but you got to see that.
So as a young kid, I was able to go from West Vancouver with my wife, and I've been with my wife for 35 years, and move her from West Van to a place like Flin Flon, Manitoba.
So for people listening at home, West Van is one of the wealthiest areas of Vancouver. Beautiful houses near the ocean, one of the nicest places in Canada to live. Flin Flon is different.
Well, you have to learn how to curl, eat pierogies, and drink. That's and smoke.
Which one were you best at? Would you say?
Well, I adapt pretty well, so I got to do all of them.
Did you do all three at the same time?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's just the standard. Smoke, hold my drink. I got to sweep. So, and it was quite good, and that's actually one of the best learnings I ever had. So again, people want to be successful. It's investing. If you want somebody to invest in you, you better invest in yourself. You better take some time to educate yourself, work the hard, long hours, not just toiling away on your job, say it underpaid, you think, but putting in extra time to better yourself. So that investment is required. You're bang on with luck. You got to be in business to be lucky. I'll share you a couple lucky things that happened to me. One is I got to participate in the oil sands after building a Ekati diamond mine, which was a phenomenal opportunity for me as a young mining manager at the Ekati mine when I was 29 years old, to design it, to build it, to make it successful. I was lucky. I got to meet some great people, a legend in the mining business, John Zagarlik, Echo Bay, and the stories he took to me. He'd come to my house and sit in my house in Yellowknife and tell me all about how things were done back in the day. So I had the luck of somebody sharing their knowledge that they had gone before me to teach me what they learned from their experiences. Number one, people. Two was the opportunity, the commodity. I got the opportunity after doing my job, which I was a low-paid guy relative to the hourly folks that got overtime and things like that. But I got now to choose where I got to go next. Opportunities to go work in copper and Escondida and BHP in Australia. They asked me if I'd go to Fort McMurray to work in the oil sands mine. I said, absolutely. We're pioneering the new technology in oil sands. So I got in there in 1998. Oil was about $11 a barrel, not too attractive to anybody to produce, let alone an oil sands mine, and let alone a copper miner in the oil business. They said, no,
said no to you.
After 4 months of it being me transferring to Fort McMurray from Yellowknife, which I thought was a great promotion from no grass to grass, and working there, and everybody said, "How can you work in Fort McMurray?" I said, "This is awesome." So the company pulls out and says, "Jeff, we're transferring to Escondida." I said, "How can I stay?" And they said, "Well, we're leaving. You'd have to quit." I said, "Well, I quit. I'm staying here because I'm standing on 5 billion barrels of oil under my feet. I can make my feet move and the oil comes out. This is crazy. This is going to be mine." So I stayed. And then I went to Shell, who was the senior partner, and said, "If we got together and came up with the money to buy BHP's share of the project, would you sell it to us?" They said, "Sure, but you got to come up with the money to build the mine, which your share would be about $1.2 billion. Can you do that?" "Well, I think we can try."
And how old were you at this point?
I think I was a senior statesman at about 35.
Okay.
But I was the general manager of the project for BHP.
Yeah.
BHP pulled out. 22 of us got together. We bought their share, and we met a guy who helped us, who just finished building the Alliance Pipeline, Guy Turcotte, mentor, person, lucky, met him, done it. "Let me show you." He says to me, "You're pretty good at building a mine. I'm pretty good at raising capital. You do your job, I'll do mine." Perfect. Division of labor, efficient. Boom. Oil, 10, 12, 13 bucks a barrel. Not too popular back in the day. All of a sudden, the Gulf War starts going on, the Bush thing, oil starts creeping up. We own oil at $10 a barrel. We raise the capital, we get debt, half equity, half debt. We form a company called Western Oil Sands. We launch that company, 15 bucks a share. We sell the company at about 110 bucks a share because oil goes to $100+ a barrel. You got to be in it to win it. And you got to be in it because you bring something to the table. You're invested, not just financial capital, intellectual capital. And the number one thing for me is the commitment to see it through. The people, I had to sign on. They said, "Can you sign on for a 6-year contract in Fort McMurray?" And everybody's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." I'm like, "Sure, a job for 6 years in this beautiful place with a road leading to it that I can drive on." And so I saw all the positives. And the next thing you know, again, we sell our company for $7 billion. Our 20% share in 7 years, $7 billion. I got a little bit of money, as I mentioned to you earlier. "Boss, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to start my own company. And I'm going to take my lessons that I learned and the people that I worked with, both worked for me, I worked with, and worked for. And I'm going to form a company that focuses on looking for more of these types of opportunities." And that's what I try to tell young people. It doesn't come right away. The copper market might not go to $4.75, but you got to be in it if you're going to actually participate in it. And so while you're in it,
it's hard to see that future equity you're building, right? In
right.
your own future.
But if you're getting paid to do it anyways, what's the downside?
Yeah.
I'm working. You got to work. You can't be Elon Musk-esque. You can't just throw an idea out there and just drive stock price because you're a great marketer. Not all of us can do that, and not very many people can do that. But you can definitely ply your trade and feed the market, which is the raw materials that the world needs. And you can be in business pretty well steady doing that. So what a great way to kind of make your money, take your investment, and see your investment grow and have some control. And that's what our business is. And that's why you see in our business model, we have an investment arm, JDS Resources, and we take our cash and capital and we deploy it into other people's projects that we like. We see them and we go, we can help you.
Projects you're building as well too, so you'll become an investor.
Yes, and we'll invest in direct cash. We'll invest in capital into equipment. We'll say, hey, you know what? Those barges, you should own them. We'll own them and manage them, and we'll take that capital off that power plant. Well, we'll build that. That building, that con shed, well, we'll put that up and we'll own that. We'll lease it back to you. That equipment, we'll lease that equipment. And so that's what we do. That's where you see our equipment list, our infrastructure, our underground contracting division. We just go through those things because we can take our investment and we know we have some say in that as far as how it's deployed, and we know how much of a benefit it is if it's working properly. The people are working properly to the investment, the bigger investment, the asset that we're working on, and we're totally aligned with our customers. And that's what I try to get with individuals. You want me to invest in you? You need to invest in yourself. You need to show me that you're part of the food chain and that you're vested into what we're going forward. So COVID, again, was a big test. It really sorted out who was vested in the philosophy versus those that were just hangers on fringers.
Tourists. All right, so let me try to summarize that.
Yeah.
Being willing to go to the right places. Oh man, what were the other ones? Being willing to go to the right places. I had a whole list in my head before I started talking.
Well, you can edit over and come up with it.
I have to edit this part out. Being willing to invest in the right places, but being willing to essentially invest in yourself. Oh, people. Being able to meet the right people. Being able to add more value than just capital. And there was one more at the end.
Well, let me simplify it again. Like, to be successful in anything in business, there's 3 capital requirements: financial capital, intellectual capital, and trust capital. And you can only get trust capital if you've been in it and you've done it and you're in it to win it and you learn from mistakes. So trust is a super important component, because the financial capital won't come if they don't see the trust.
Yeah.
The intellectual capital won't come if they don't see the value. So those 3 things, individuals have to come to the party with themselves. They have to have that trust and that, hey, Jeff's going to actually come good in the end in this thing. The guy's like hard on us. He's making us work in these places. And we sent a young mining engineer. We pulled him out of school. We paid for his graduation and everything out of Montana. We brought him to our office. We sent him down to Mexico, and he got kidnapped on his first assignment in Mexico. That guy today is our project manager in Botswana, sinking the shaft for another leader in the mining business, Ira Thomas. She's my customer, but those are the people. They've said, hang on, we've seen some stuff like this before. This guy, unfortunately, I don't want to advocate. Nobody needs to get kidnapped, but he's been through some adversity, and he's okay with setting up the barriers to make sure that he's protected in a better way going forward. So that he didn't run away from me. He didn't quit. He didn't freeze in space, and he showed up. And so that's the thing that we like to see. So that's really key to me. And the other thing is mentorship. So we all have mentors, and those mentors typically should be like our fathers or mothers. They're people in our family that are good people, community members, the natural people, the coaches and the Boy Scout leaders. So you got to realize that there's mentors around you everywhere. And those mentors sometimes are the people that are working for you. If you take the time and you create the environment, they will teach you how to behave to make you a better leader. So the people have to know that they're coming into this. They're just not going to be taking the drip from the feeder. They're actually going to be building the business. They themselves have to take ownership and participation. They have to teach the leaders. In my career, my mentors are the people that call me, that were working for me, that were laborers or truck drivers or miners, and they call me up and say, Jeff, you really made a difference in my life in the way you did this, and you gave me a chance in this and whatever. And that shapes me. It makes me think more about me as a person, how to run my business. Those people are my mentors. They are giving me the feedback. They actually saw it in themselves that they could actually speak to me and give me direction. The mentors, and whether they're some of my customers that I work for and they share me, as mentioned, a guy like John Zagarlik, who was actually a contractor working for me, who took the time as a senior statesman himself in the mining business to come to my house at night in Yellowknife on a Sunday and tell me, hey, you ought to change some of these things. You can make a lot of money, you can do some good and take some chances. So those people will give you those pieces of information if you're receptive. So you have to not only be aware that there's mentors out there and trying to attract them, you have to be a mentor yourself. But you have to put the bait out there so people want to communicate to you. You got to be receptive to new ideas and things. You also got to be relevant. You got to keep up. And that's why this ESG stuff that comes out, it's the new language. Me as a guy getting out of the mining business, I'm getting old, I'm going to die. I don't have any choice about it. I'm not going to get out until I die. But I got to learn the new language. I got to keep up with the new space. But I'm not going to throw everything away. I'm going to start to translate my initiatives into the new language. And I'm going to make everybody else aware I'm listening. I'm listening, but you also are going to get something back in return. So be a mentor. Mentors are everywhere. You actually have to focus and say, I got to do my job as a mentor. I've got to take some time and spread myself around, and not just in my business, but in my community, in my country. I've got things to do, and I've got to push out there if I want to make it better. And that's really what matters. That's the person that gets into being an entrepreneur, that risks capital. Capital is something that's so hard to get and so easy to lose, and they need to understand that.
Is there any advice that you consistently hear being given to younger people in this industry, or anyone, that you think is bad advice? Any sort of ideas that are often troped around that you totally disagree with?
Yeah, get an MBA after you say get an engineering degree, and you immediately get an MBA in school. You know, that I think that's bad advice. You know, there's nothing that's better than getting real experience. So, you know, as I said, I got a mining engineer and went back on to shoveling muck into the mine car and running a electric locomotive underground and running a jumbo and a jackleg. And well, I went to all the school to get an engineering degree, but you know, that experience and that human element of getting involved with the people at the ground level, actually being a union member at the time and being elected as the shop steward mining engineer at the mine was a bit, wow. But so that experience versus, say, going on and propelling yourself to like MBA and being super analytical, I'd say precisely inaccurate. Lots of precision, but you actually don't know what you're talking about. So you need to get into the dirt. Get into the dirt. And so people, you do need PhDs. Some people are just bent that way. They're so good. They can do a Rubik's Cube in a couple of minutes. I've never even managed to complete a Rubik's Cube. Actually, probably don't even know what one is. It's probably...
I know what a Rubik's Cube is.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, is that you got to
Get
have
your hands dirty.
You
Don't-
do,
yeah.
yeah. And not
Don't
just
try to
dirty, but
skip that
calloused.
process.
You know
Yeah.
what? A lot of people come in palms up. It's not that. It's not palms up. You need to have your hands on some tools, doing the work, and then the money comes to you. Don't come in with palms up. You got to come in with a solution. You got to have some experience. As I mentioned, that trust capital. You got to be invested.
Okay. Any other tidbits, advice, or resources that you'd recommend for people starting out in the space? Could be books, could be mentors, could be anything. Anything you think people should be doing that they're not?
I think a lot of time volunteer and getting out, whether it's like working at, say, something like simple as the Britannia Mine Museum and understanding what went on before. History, reading history, which I'm a big fan of history by accident because I worked in a lot of these places that were historical and I kind of found out. But if I knew more earlier, the politic, working with First Nations and understanding and living in these communities, you know, getting out into the communities to understand the real issues. This camp thing about me, I want to have the lifestyle outside of the mine, and I'm going to do 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out because they have lattes in Vancouver. They don't have lattes in Flin Flon. So go and learn and live with the environment that you're going to eventually become part of, and you'll be successful. Understand the real issues at the ground level. So that's what people can do to prepare themselves, like outdoors people, travel, you know, just get out and do, and don't take everything that's being fed to you through the formal channels of the internet or TV for granted. Go find out for yourself. That's really critical.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you, didn't touch on today that we should have talked about?
Yeah, I think just in it real quick here, everybody talks about diversity. And we never really talk about diversity ourselves, but we're being forced to, and that's fine. I'm happy to describe that what we're doing. And you met a lady here today, Kaylee, I brought in to assist us with communicating what we should be proud of, because we took it for granted that because we had almost a United Nations worth of people as far as where they came from Iran, Russia, Ukraine, Mexican, United States, Canadian. We've never kind of filtered and described ourselves as that, but we just thought we had the right people for the right job in the right places. We made up the company based on the places that we worked on. So we never talked about the diversity. Same with the fact of male and female. Now we talk about female. And that's one thing that I'd say, even though we have a pretty good ratio of women in our company, 60% of our administrative and executive staff is women. 14% of our labor on the tools are women, and about 30% of our project managers, engineers are women. So we have a really good number there as far as the number goes. I wanted to dig into that and say, okay, what does that mean? Why? What we have, though, is a gap of opportunity that we can attract more women into our business, because there's some good brain power there. There's some good unharnessed energy that have never explored the mining business as a career. We're always looking for talented people, period, in Canada. And as a mining business, it has a bit of a stigma. We need to bring people in our company that's going to attract others to follow. So we need some progressive people. And I'm saying progressive, just people that are good at their job and good at communicating and really role models. So I've had to go and bring in somebody like Kaylee and some of our top executives to show the ladies in our workforce or in our market that this is a pretty good place to work.
And how's that working? Is it attracting newer, younger talent?
Absolutely, and it's again part of the job. It's like it's a forced reality. It's like we're not doing it because we're trying to get the numbers up, but we're trying to attract a bigger talent pool.
Right.
And whether it's nationality, but also young people, we just need to get more people into our business. And if we can make our business look like any other business, whether you're a banking business that has a natural male-female thing in the city here because it's easy to get to work and all that stuff, that's what we need to do if we're gonna be really a long-term Canadian sort of protected business.
Do you find there's a misconception about what a career in mining means from, I guess, either women or just younger generation that maybe haven't considered it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good stat in the Mining Association of BC has the numbers, but like 29% of the people in the mining business are actually touching the rock. So that leaves some 61% of the people doing something else. And so they need to know what else that is that's important to the food chain of the mining business.
Right.
And those are leaders, planners, financial people, marketing, communications, technology development, scientists. There's a whole host of things that go on in the mine. The mine's a community. And you, when you hire on in the mine, like myself, I've done just about every single job in the mine with one exception. Never worked in the smelter in Flin Flon. So I never was a smelter worker, but I could smell the smelter. I understood what went on in there. But basically, that's the business. You can actually morph yourself around pretty good and find a comfortable zone, both in terms of your skill set and where you are in your life. Whether you're the hard charging, and as you get older, you're kind of a little bit more delicate. So slow it down a bit. I don't want to be packing powder down on the ground anymore. So there's a spot for you. If you're mechanically inclined or you want to become mechanically inclined, go find out. So that's the business is a community. It's an awesome community. It's not just for me. It's not just my work. It's my life. Earning a living is living, and we live it hard. My family's in it, from my wife to my sons, and now a grandson. He's going to be born here in another week, and he's going to be in the mining business. But it's our sport. We contribute to sports, and we have good fun together. We travel together, we build together, and we're successful together. So it's really, really, really rewarding. It's a bit like a coat that you put on, and you just it becomes you. And otherwise, it's just flat and flaccid if we don't come and pump it up a bit. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm bullish on the business. It's done phenomenal for me. It's done phenomenal for our country. Had a 100-year run of really being successful, developing things like the nickel mines and the gold mines, and you talked about the uranium in the north, and it took a bit of a pause, and we need to jack it up, and we need to tell the world we're good, we're damn good, and it's a fun place to be.
All right, Jeff, I don't think we're going to find a better place to leave it than that. Okay. Thank you very much for coming in.
All right, thanks for having me. This is a fantastic show. I'm learning something about this podcast.